Hello and welcome to episode 4 of the Alfology2 podcast. Previously, we've been discussing some of the larger issues, such as the order of the alphabet, where Scotch eggs came from, and whether or not pandas should be allowed to die out. We're not going to stop with the hard-hitting topics, and today I will be conducting a rigorous scientific investigation into if the moon was made of cheese, which cheese should it be made out of? Like, if you were going to create an exact replica of the moon, and you had to create it out of cheese, which cheese would you use to do so? Which would be the most suitable cheese to make a moon out of? Anyway, we're not talking about any moon. We're talking about the moon, our moon, the main moon, the one that you can see in the sky at night. Not any scientific smart asses coming at me with things about Jupiter's moons or moons in other galaxies that may or may not even exist. And I do also appreciate that potentially the correct answer to all this is that you should make it out of some sort of vegan cheese, because that would be very good for the environment if we could make it entirely out of vegan cheese. You don't have to make a moon-sized thing out of, cheese that's come from cows or sheep or goats, which is obviously very bad for the environment. However, I couldn't find any vegan cheese in the shop. So that is bad for two or three reasons. First of all, I can't do any scientific tests to see how it fares. And secondly, if it's that unavailable that I can't find it in the shop, how are you going to make a whole fucking moon out of it? So animal-produced cheese as it is. And I would first of all like to say to you that these cheeses have been specially selected. These are the top-level cheeses for this experiment. However, that isn't the case. These are just the cheeses that were on special in Dunn's, my local store. They were 3 for 2. So that's a bargain. And then there were a couple of other ones that were quite cheap. And then the cheddar and the parmesan, I already had some, so that made the cut as well. So the cheeses we have an Irish soft cheese, whatever that is, nondescript soft cheese. We have a Gouda, or Gouda, I don't know how to say Gouda, I think it's Gouda. We have a parmesan, as discussed before, and a cheddar. In addition to that, we have a Stilton and a Brie. So just to describe to you how this is going to work, how we're going to decide which is the best cheese to create a moon from. So we're going to give it a number of scores across a number of different categories, and the highest scoring cheese across the board wins, and that will be the one that we make our moon from. So the first way we're going to score it is its texture. And I'm thinking texture underfoot. So if you were to walk on the moon, how realistic would it feel if it was made out of said cheese? If you'd fall straight through the surface because your foot is too heavy, then that's not ideal for creating a moon. This will be given a score out of 10 because I reckon it's probably the most important one is how it would feel underfoot. So that is a weighted score of 10. So 10 points available for each cheese on this one. The second element to judge them on is colour. So how would that moon look from the Earth or from outside? If you're looking at the moon, would it look realistic if it was made out of that particular cheese? This is again very important, so this one will also be scored out of 10. The third element on which it will be judged is how effectively it would create the moon soil. If you don't know about moon soil, it's the dust which forms part of the moon. You see the footprints of the astronauts, which are still there because there's no wind. There's a thin layer of film or mud or dust or soil on top of the moon, and you can walk on it, and as your foot goes on it, leaves footprints. So this element will be based around if you were to crumble the cheese, or I guess grate the cheese, how effectively would it make a nice moon soil for the astronauts that inevitably visited this cheesy moon to make footprints? I guess this isn't as important as the other ones, but it's still pretty important, so we'll be scoring this one out of 7. And last, but very definitely least, we have taste. If you were going to visit the moon and you like cheese, which obviously everyone does, then you would want to eat some, wouldn't you? If you're like, oh, fucking hell, look at all this cheesy moon soil and cheesy ground everywhere. I'm going to have a handful of that. Looks delicious. I think everyone would be tempted by that. So taste is an important one. And as time moves on, space travel is going to become more and more common, so it's likely that in 100 years' time, people visiting the cheese moon is going to be very, very commonplace. So taste does matter. However, not as much as the moon soil or the colour or how it feels underfoot or the general texture of it. So this one, the taste will be given a score of 3 points. So let's meet the contenders so you can place your bets on what's going to win. We have the vintage cheddar bought from Lidl, looks quite good. Then we have the 3 from the 3 for 2, which is a Tipperary Brie, a blue Stilton and a mature Gouda. We then have a nice cheap and cheerful Irish cream cheese, which looks decidedly rough. And we have a Dunn's Simply Better Parmesan cheese, which looks pretty delicious. So without further delay, we will move on to our first cheese, which is the blue Stilton. Because it looks fucking delicious and I literally cannot wait any longer, we're going to start this one off with how it tastes. Okay, so having tried it, I can say that is definitely a 3 out of 3. What a cheese that is. If I was visiting a moon made out of that, I'd eat the whole fucking thing. That is how good it is. So moving on to one of the more important areas, which is the colour. This cheese is going to struggle. It is blue, and I know you hear the phrase once in a blue moon, but unfortunately the moon isn't blue. I guess the moon is a whitish, greyish colour. That'd be my opinion. Can be yellow if the sun's shining on it. Anyway, this cheese is pretty much blue. Lots of blue on it. Lots of yellow on it. Not good for colour. So, out of the 10, which I was going to give it for colour, I will probably give this one maybe a 2. So, scored well on taste, hasn't scored well on colour. And now for texture. It looks good. Feels good under the fingers. When you push down on it with your fingers, it doesn't immediately crumble. You don't go through it. You can push down on it. It doesn't break. It's quite well held together. It doesn't fall apart. I reckon it's a pretty solid option as far as texture goes. No criticisms of the texture really at all. I think if I was going to make a moon, this is really the texture I'd be after. Maybe it's a little bit soft. If you really do hammer down on it, you could sponge it a little bit. So out of 10 for texture, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. And finally, for this cheese, we have how well it makes up the moon soil or the moon dust. Not particularly good, to be honest. It's, I guess it's a little bit too malleable. Not dusty enough. It doesn't grate very well. Couldn't even use the grater. I had to hack it up with a knife. When you push down on it, it sort of just flattens out rather than being dusty. It doesn't have a really very dusty texture. So pretty poor on the moon soil element of it. So I'm going to give that a 3 out of 7. And that means that the blue Stilton has scored 16 points overall out of a possible 30. So a mid-scoring cheese. Average. Nothing wrong with average. It's okay. Everything will be fine with this cheese. But surely there is better out there. There is a better cheese out there if you want to create a moon. So now we have potentially the one I've been dreading the most, which is the Irish cream cheese. Looks pretty rough, to be honest. Described as a farmhouse cream cheese made by the Dunn family from Enniscorthy, County Wexford. It's pretty much just own brand crap. And I have noticed as well that the use by date is 2 days before the recording, and I only bought it yesterday, so they've sold it to me after the use by date. But no bother, don't get involved with stuff like that. I'm sure it'll be fine. It's been in the fridge. So this is the next one. We'll start with its strongest suit, which I think is its colour. It's quite white, maybe slightly off-white, but pretty white. Not very grey, but quite hard to get a cheese that is grey, so not going to hold that against it. And I think if you were to put it up in the sky, out into space, huge amounts of it, and the sun were to reflect off it, I'm pretty sure it probably would give off a yellowy colour. So colour's good. I'll give it an 8 out of 10 for colour, which is a strong start. It is the strongest suit. So 8 out of 10 for colour. So next we have the flavour, or the taste of the cheese, to be scored out of 3. Just tried it with a spoon. I spooned that into my big old gob. And honestly, not as bad as I was expecting. I thought that one would be really, really gross. But actually, if I were to visit a moon made out of that, I probably would have a little go on it. Wouldn't be, trying to eat the whole fucking thing like I was with the Stilton, but I'd have a spoonful. So not a lot of wiggle room with the cheese, really, when it comes to scoring the taste. So I'll give that one a 2 out of 3, which, to be fair, is very solid. Right, the texture, how it would do at making up a moon. Extremely poor. Very, very bad, but the texture. Just give my fingers a little walk through the pack, and they just went straight through, straight to the bottom. You can push through it so easily. I mean, maybe it's sticky enough so that it would be cohesive enough to create a moon in the sky, but as soon as you were to walk on it, you'd be going straight through. Nothing like the actual moon. So really, really poor. I'm going to give it a 1 out of 10 for texture. And last but very much not least, we have its ability to create moon soil. Again, look, it's just not a good performance from the cream cheese. I'm sorry for any cream cheese fans out there, but it just hasn't happened. They haven't turned up on the day. I've been trying to hack it up with a spoon to try and make smaller pieces of cream cheese, try and see if it, creates some sort of powder. Not happening. It's cream. Cream doesn't make powder. Sorry, hasn't happened. Maybe if you leave it for years on end, it might go pretty gross, but we're not doing that. It's as it is right now. Cheese isn't going to go off in space, is it? So 1 out of 7 for the moon soil. Another 1. Not a good showing for the cream cheese. So, as discussed, the cream cheese just hasn't shown up, hasn't put in its best performance. Not a good cheese. I think my calculations are correct. That's 12 out of 30. Below par. Not going to make the moon out of that one. Already lost out to the Stilton, so we can put that one nicely where it belongs, into the bin. So next up on the list is the Tipperary Brie, which looks to be a strong contender from the outset. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Alf, Bries don't come from Tipperary, they come from France. Should have got a French Brie. Well, what I would say to you is 2 things. First of all, they didn't have a French Brie in the shop. My hands were tied. What am I supposed to do? Second of all, if we were to make an entire moon, the moon's massive, lads. It's huge. Big old thing in the sky. Massive. We like, one producer of Brie is not going to make enough Brie to make a whole moon. So we would need to be mixing and matching. We'd need to get one from France, Tipperary, wherever else they make Brie. Plenty of different Bries all around the world can come together, be moulded together to make a moon. One provider is not going to cut it. So if you're thinking that I should have got a French Brie, really you can go and fuck yourself. So with the Tipperary Brie, we will start off with the colour. Looking at it right now, it's a pretty nice colour. I guess the main body of the cheese, I guess, is yellow. Nice yellowy colour, and the top is like a dusty white sort of colour. I'd say probably the top of it, if you were to make it like a big oval of Brie with the top as it is, and then the middle as it is, so if you get me, the white bit on the top is the outside of the moon, then I think, look, you're really onto one with the colour. Probably the best one we've had so far. So colour-wise, let's give that a 9 out of 10. Good, solid start for the Brie. Texture-wise, there are potentially some issues. It's not so bad. It holds its own. It keeps together. The top's a little bit cracked from where I've been pushing down on it, where I've run my fingers over the top. Texture-wise, I'd say it's pretty good. Maybe too spongy. It's a little bit too much give. I'd imagine when you're walking on the moon, not an awful lot of give there. It's not too soft. It's quite a hard surface. So maybe not a great showing in terms of the texture. So score, we'll give that a 6 out of 10 for the texture of how the moon would actually be. Moving on to taste, I've just had a little go on this Brie. It's okay. It's not horrible. It's not delicious. I know potentially you might want to eat it warm, but obviously it's pretty cold up in space. So, look, I'd say it's a pretty average score. No better than the cream cheese. Certainly not in the same league as the Stilton. So, 2 out of 3 for flavour. Finally, for this cheese, we have the moon soil, the moon dust element to it. Look, it's a disaster for the Brie. Actually, it's too cohesive. It's too sticky. You run your fingers over it. You try and I've created some moon soil using a knife. Again, you can't grate it. It's too sticky to grate. Too cohesive. you can just squeeze it together. As soon as it would just mold into the hard ground below, and then just become more of the surface. So really, it's very poor creating moon soil. I'm going to give it a 2 out of 7. And that is our highest scoring cheese so far, ladies and gentlemen. We have a 19 out of 30. Strong showing from the Brie, mainly due to its texture and colour. Taste left something to be desired, and really the moon soil was, well, it's just a fucking disaster. So that's our top scorer so far. 3 cheeses to go, which will start shortly. Just as a note here, guys, I realise there's going to be some serious questions being thrown up about, first of all, how cheesy it smells in here right now. And I can tell you, it smells fucking cheesy. Oh my God, does it smell cheesy in here? And it's only going to get cheesier. The next thing, you're going to be saying, well, you're being biased. You're using the same equipment for all of it. You're mixing your cheeses. So it's only going to change as it goes on. Perhaps results will be different if it was in a different order. You're not washing it down. I can tell you I am washing it down. I'm washing it down with a nice cold can of Hop House Lager. It's 3 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon. I'm entitled to that. I'm entitled to a beer on a Sunday afternoon. So I'm refreshing my palate every single go. Get the same palate refresher. And in terms of equipment, I've created myself a lot of washing up by using new utensils, new plates, new cutlery, every single time I'm doing it. So if you think this is an unfair scientific test, then go fuck yourself. So next up, we have the mature Gouda, which is described as handcrafted rich Gouda from Beemsterpolder in the Netherlands. This is part of our 3 for 2 Done Stores offer. And we'll start off with the colour for this one. I think maybe when I picked this one up in the shop yesterday, I thought this would be a solid option for the colour, but really, it's a bit orange. One thing the moon isn't is orange. I mean, it can be yellow when the sun reflects off it. It can be white, I guess, and I think it probably actually is grey. This is none of those things. There's a little bit of white dusting on top of it, but I'm pretty sure that's just mould cultures. So pretty poor on the colour. Might give it, I guess, a 3 out of 10. It is a little bit yellow, which gives it some numbers, but yeah, ultimately a 3 out of 10. The texture is pretty good, I would say. When I push my fingers in it, when I run my fingers along as if I'm walking with them, not a lot of give, a bit of give around the edges. But the good thing is about the moon is that it really is a sphere, so there aren't really any outer edges, any thin parts. So pretty good texture, solid contender. I think we'll go for an 8 out of 10. Really good from the Gouda. The Dutch, they know their textures. They've thought about this. When they invented Gouda ages ago, they thought one day some guy's going to be doing a podcast about the moon and how they should make it out of cheese. And he's going to use our cheese. Unfortunately, I think it's the same with colour, but they've done a good job with the texture. So fair play to those Dutch, and I'm sure they'll all be delighted when they hear the news. So I've just had a little taste of it off recording, and not good, really. Not a great cheese. The flavour doesn't shine through at all. It just doesn't taste very nice, to be honest. It is quite cheesy, and I have had a lot of cheese today, so maybe I am bored of eating cheese. But on the whole, it's by far and away the worst of all of them so far. So it gets a 1 out of 3 for flavour. And I do apologise to the Dutch for that. In terms of the moon soil, this one's performed excellently. First of all, I was actually able to grate this cheese. Was able to get it through the grater. And the other ones were really poor in that respect. Obviously, cream cheese is an absolute disaster, and the other two were quite soft and really, really couldn't go through. But the Gouda's gone through nicely. It's gone through the grater. It hasn't succumbed to the pressure being put on it. It's still in a nice grated format when it's been rolled over by my fingers and been pushed apart. So a really good result for this cheese in terms of its overall moon soil ability. So if I were to create a moon soil, that's what I'd be delighted. So we'll give that one a 6 out of 7 for the moon soil. So well done to the Dutch once again. My lightning fast mathematical brain has been put into use and has worked out that the Gouda scored 18 out of 30, which is better than the Stilton and the cream cheese. So well done there, but still very, very unlikely, in fact impossible, to be our winner from the cheeses taken thus far. Moving on to one of our hot favourites for this competition, which is the Parmesan cheese. Nice block of hard cheese. Hard cheese bodes well for it. We're going to start off with the colour of this one. It is, I would say, a very pale yellow colour. Almost white, but not quite. Off-white, pale yellow. Good colour for a moon. It would give off the right reflection and wouldn't look too out of place if there was no reflection. Obviously, none of these cheeses are grey, so none of them are going to be perfect, but this one's pretty good. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10 for colour. I've just tried this cheese, and I can't wait to tell you about it. What a taste that is. Perfect fucking cheese. That is. I mean, like, blows the other ones out of the water. I'm tempted to give all the other ones 1 out of 3 now. Bun this one up to a 3. Make taste the most important thing. Make taste worth 30 points on its own. Give this one 30. Fucking great cheese that is. Absolutely destroys the competition. Obviously, this one gets a 3 out of 3. And really, it's fucking made a huge, huge impact with its texture as well. If you were going to make a moon out of this cheese, it would be fucking solid as anything. Absolutely, amazingly solid. I know Parmesan's a hard cheese, so it has its advantages to begin with, but this is just spectacular. You could really, really put some damage into that and it would not break. No crumbling at all. No finger marks. I push my finger into it. No give on it at all. Fantastic. So, in terms of its texture and its makeup and its ability to create a moon, I think we're going to have to go with a 10 out of 10. And finally, its moon soil abilities. Its crumbly texture once it's been grated. Everyone knows Parmesan's a dream to grate, isn't it? The grater and the Parmesan were made for each other. Managed to grate this one really well. Push my fingers through it, hammered it down a little bit, tried to squidge it together. No real luck. It's nice and crumbly. It's done a really, really good job. And really, if you were to create like a nice dust out of it and put it all over your moon, I think you'd be really happy with that. It would make suitable footprints. Wouldn't smudge down too much, but at the same time is the right consistency. So, look, I think this one really is running away with it. I think out of 7, gotta give it a 7. So that is an incredible, an unbelievable, a record-breaking 28 out of 30 for the Parmesan. It's very, very hard to see it losing it from here. It would be an amazing comeback by the vintage cheddar if that were to happen. However, this is a rigorous scientific investigation, so the investigation will continue and we will try out the cheddar. So here we are, last and potentially least, we have this vintage cheddar, which is sitting right in front of me as I speak. As an introduction to this particular type of cheese, it's described as an intensely nutty, sharp cheddar cheese with a true depth of character. I mean, I don't really know how a cheddar has a depth of character, or any character at all. I didn't realise that it really has a personality. Anyway, moving swiftly on. It's been matured for over 15 months in County Derry, creating a slightly crumbly texture and creamy flavour. And honestly, they've talked it up. It's got great character, great taste, it's creamy. So let's give it a go. We'll start off with the taste. So I'm going to go and taste it, and I'll be back to you in what will be, once I've edited this, 1 second. Tell you what, lads, that's a hell of a cheese. They've really poured out the stops to make that one. Big old slice into my big old mouth. Oh, and I'll tell you what, if anything was going to give Parmesan a run for its money, that was it. They truly, truly did describe it very well. It does have depth of character. I feel like I know it on a deep level. I feel like it understands me. That's how good this cheese tastes. So, a 3 out of 3. Can't deny it, the 3. So well done to the vintage cheddar and the people in County Derry who made it. Right, it's time for colour. Pretty similar colour to the Parmesan, really. Bit too yellow. I know it is cheese, it is cheddar cheese, which is traditionally quite yellow, but I'd say that there's a bit too much of a yellow element to this one. Not really what we're looking for, but still pretty strong as far as all these cheeses go. So I'll give it a 7 out of 10 for colour. So next up we have its texture and its ability to create a moon. It performs quite well here. If you push down hard enough, you can create some fingerprints in it. So there is a little bit of give, but ultimately it's pretty hard. It does well enough. Certainly you could make a moon out of it. It wouldn't be the best moon, but you could make a reasonable simulation of a moon. So let's give it, I don't know, we'll give it a 7 out of 10 for its texture. So well done to the cheddar. That's a good showing overall. And finally, we have its ability to create moon soil, which ultimately is piss poor. It grates very well, and it does grate well, but it's just too cohesive. You press down on it, you push your fingers in it, it just molds into blocks of cheddar, which you don't want. Moon soil is there for a reason, the fact that it doesn't mold into the rest of the moon. So ultimately, this one has performed poorly here. Not a moon soil equivalent. So I'm going to give it a 4 out of 7 for the moon soil. So it's an okay score because you can grate it, you can make the small bits, but it just doesn't stand the test of putting pressure on that soil. So that is a 4 out of 7 for the cheddar. So if my A in GCSE maths is not letting me down here, I make that a 21 out of 30 for the cheddar, which on the whole is an impressive score. You can't deny that. Well done to the cheddar for its 21. But ultimately, it does lose out to the Parmesan as our champion. Parmesan scoring 28, really running away with it, destroying its competition, leaving carnage in its wake. Other cheese manufacturers will be watching this or listening to this, thinking, what the hell have we done? How have we managed to get ourselves to this point where Parmesan's wiping the floor with us so badly? So ultimately, these are the scores on the doors, ranked from top to bottom. Obviously, as discussed, we have the Parmesan in at number 1, 28 points. Well done to the Italians. They really, really pulled out the stops, made a fantastic Parmesan, and they deserve their success. Cheddar in at number 2, 21. Look, really solid contender. Just unlucky that Parmesan's there. Like Cristiano Ronaldo, just unlucky to be playing at the same time as Lionel Messi. Would be the best in the world if it weren't for the exceptional. In at number 3, we have the Brie, which performed well, almost as well as the cheddar. 19 out of 30. It just really let itself down with its moon soil abilities. Gouda in at number 4, unexpected, really. I thought it would have done better, but in at number 4, it comes in with 18 points. So well done to the Gouda. Not a bad showing. Stilton, it drops off. It's a shame because the Stilton was really quite tasty, but just let itself down in other areas. So that's a 16 for the Stilton in at number 5. And last, but most definitely fucking least, oh my god, what a waste of time that was, is the Irish cream cheese. No, that's just the texture was all wrong. Absolute disaster. The only thing I would say about it is the taste wasn't as bad as potentially I was expecting. So well done for not making it fucking rancid. But other than that, really, the Irish cream cheese market needs to pull itself together, dust itself down, and think, how could we get closer to being the material that we make the moon out of? Anyway, that's all from me. I think I'm all cheesed out. I've eaten more cheese than I could ever possibly hope to, and then I've pretty much for the next few days I will just be eating cheese. I will be binging cheese. I've got really mostly all of 6 packets left. I've only eaten a very small amount today, so cheese on toast it is for the next few days. Well done to everybody if you've listened this far. I realised that was quite the slog, and please do subscribe or follow or listen to the other episodes when you're ready. If you do have any opinions of other cheeses which could be tested, and do get in touch. I might do a follow-up, see if we can topple Parmesan. And look, yeah, just do subscribe and keep on listening and give us feedback as you wish. And tune in next time. I'm sure the other one won't be far off. There will be another one to come. And yes, thank you very much.